Yes, good morning, folks. How are you? I hope you're all well this morning. It's a Wednesday morning, the middle of the week. Um, I'm looking out here. It's fantastic that it's so bright. It was a bit wet out, but it wasn't yesterday fantastic. Absolutely fantastic, the weather. At least it's getting better and it's getting a bit drier, which is what we all need at this time of the year. Let me talk to you about something that I've seen over the last 30 years. And ever since I started working when I was 14, 14 and a half on the car ferries. People who hate their jobs, okay? People who every day of the week will tell you how bad they hate their jobs. They will tell you forever that they're always moving. They're always moving on. They're always looking for something better. They're always chasing something. And you know who they are. You may be one of them, but you know who they are. And sometimes you dread going into work because you're going to be sitting beside these people and they're going to be telling you how great their new job will be. They're always chasing something else. Always chasing, always chasing. I remember with the first year I went on the car ferries as a boy. You used to call them boys. Working in the cafeteria, cleaning off tables in my first year. I was amazed the amount of people, stewards and stewardesses, who told me that first summer that they would be leaving. That when I came back the following summer, they wouldn't be there. That they would be in better jobs, earning better money, doing better things, and having a better life. And you know what? The second year I went back for that summer job, they were still there, doing the same thing, saying the same thing, telling me the same stories. They're moving on. They hate their job. They found something better, more money, more opportunities. And when I went back in year 3 for my summer job, they were still there, doing the same thing, saying the same thing. And in year 4 and in year 5, they were still there saying the same thing, telling me how much they hated their job. To the extent that a number of years later, when I traveled as a passenger on the car ferries, when I was working in the UK, I traveled home for a Christmas on one of the car ferries. And a lot of the staff that I worked with were still there, still saying the same thing. Now, you had one or two who might say, we're still here, we haven't moved on. And they will still say to you, they hated their job and they were going to find other opportunities. And you wonder what was holding them back. What was holding them back was courage. And probably, as my book says, having a neck like a jockey's bollocks. They wouldn't move on because they couldn't take the risk of losing what they have to get something better. They just couldn't take that risk of losing what they had, possibly for something better. They panicked. They just liked the comfort of the weekly paycheck. They liked the comfort of where they are. And no matter how many times they say they hated their job, and they probably did hate their job. They probably did not like where they were working. It probably drove them mad. And every morning they woke up, they dreaded to go down into work or into that bar or into that restaurant or into that office. They dreaded it every morning because they hated it. And they looked at other people driving fancy cars and living in bigger houses and wearing better clothes. And they would always say, that's going to be me. But the real bad ones will say, the people who have that better car and that better house and those better clothes, they must be doing something wrong. They must be ripping off the system. They must be robbing someone. They're not getting that from hard work. But the reality is, the entrepreneurs of today and of yesterday and of tomorrow are people who have the courage and the conviction to go out there and do it for themselves. And when you're working for yourself, you cannot hate your job. If you're working for yourself at the moment and you're listening to me and you hate what you're doing, then my only piece of advice to you, and it's the best piece of advice you will ever get, is give it up. If you're working for yourself and you hate what you're doing, give it up. I give it up today. Because it's within your power to give it up. But 99.99% of all entrepreneurs, they do love what they do. They have a passion for what they do. Whether it's simply painting, and I don't say simply easily, but I mean painting walls, changing plugs, unblocking toilets, selling accountancy practices, selling software packages, selling web design, selling social media information, whatever it is that they're working for. They have a passion and they love what they're doing. And when I started my first company, one of the biggest thrills I got wasn't finding the office space, wasn't getting the leaflets printed. And that we had 11 restaurants that we delivered food from all around the Chelsea, Kensington and Fulham area. So there was over 1.5 million people in that small area. So we delivered from our 11 restaurants to Chelsea, Kensington, Fulham, all around the area. And when I started that business, as I said, it wasn't the printing the booklets. I wasn't finding the office space in Putney. It wasn't getting my first 2 or 3 staff members and my first few drivers. That wasn't what gave me the buzz the first time, the real buzz of being an entrepreneur. Do you know where it was? Can anyone guess where it was? It was the first sale. I still have the Amex receipt. I never sent her in for the first sale that I ever got from a Mr. Johnson. He gave me my first sale. He rang up my company. He placed an order for food, and the food was delivered to him, and he paid for that food by Amex. And I still have the original receipt. I still have it. That's what gave me the buzz, and that's what it's all about. That when you deliver the service, you deliver the product, you deliver your promise, and you get paid for it. That's what gives you the buzz, and that's what keeps you going. And yes, all entrepreneurs have bad days. I've never had a bad day that I said, I hate what I'm doing. Never. But you can have bad days. You will have bad days. But your bad days are better than the great days of someone who's working for someone else who hates their jobs. Because that person who hates their job will always be saying they hate their job. They just will. We all know family members and friends who will tell you in Morse code, oh no, move it on. Something else burning away somewhere. Or something else in the back burner. Yeah, oh no, there's something else going on. You wait and see. This time next year, I'm going to be like a rocket somewhere else. And what happens this time next year? They're still giving you the Morse code talk. They're still giving you the nudge and the wink. No, have something on the back burner. And you wonder, if they have something on the back burner, why is it burned? Why is it not burned? If you had something in the back burner at home on your stove, it'd be burnt within a year, right? It's all talk. They fantasize in their head where they're going to be. They fantasize in their head driving that fancy car. They fantasize in their head wearing the fancy clothes. They fantasize in their head moving to a new house. But they don't take the physical action of doing something about it. And that's the thing about entrepreneurs. Anyone listening who runs their own business will know that nothing happens until they put the effort in. Whether it's chasing a new client, whether it's chasing a new supplier for a new product you want to sell to your customers, whether it's expanding the business and taking on new staff and getting a new van or new cars, or whether it's opening a new office in a new country. Nothing happens when you're an entrepreneur unless you take the action. You don't just live it in your head, which is important to visualize and see where you're going. But you don't just live it in your head. You actually take the action to make it happen. And the people who keep telling you all the time, I hate my job, I hate my job, I hate my job. Oh, I'm on the bus again. Same thing day in, day out. This won't be me in a few weeks. And they're looking out the bus and the bus window and they see somebody in a fantastic car, look, dressed in a fantastic suit or fantastic clothes, him or her driving to work, and they go, that'll be me in a year's time. I'll be doing that. Maybe they see someone who they think is an accountant or an insurance broker or an actuary, and they go, that'll be me. But they never take the action. They never go for the education. They never go for the course. They never take that step forward to make themselves be that person. They'll fantasize about it all the time, but without taking the action, it'll never happen. Those people I worked with on the car ferries, for about at least 10 years after that, until that company was sold, they were still, and they all got redundancies, they were still doing the same job. Nothing has changed. When I came back one Christmas, when I was working in the UK, now I started on working the car ferries at 14. So when I was coming back for the Christmas, I was 22, about 21, coming back for a Christmas. So you're talking about 6-7 years later. And even after that, when I came back 8 or 9 years later, they were all still wearing the same uniform, wearing the same white shirt, standing behind the same bar or standing in the same restaurant, doing the same job. And you could tell by the look on their faces, they hated what they're doing. And in a way, you could tell by the look on their faces that when they see you coming back from doing something in the UK and out there living a different life, that they're in a way resentful and also mourning what they've lost, what they haven't done. They're mourning that they never took the risk, that they never left, that they're still there saying the same thing. That's what they're mourning. Because they never had the bottle, or as my book says, they never had the neck like a jockey's bollocks to go out and do it for themselves. And that's what real entrepreneurs do. Real entrepreneurs go out there and do it for themselves. They take the risks, they find the opportunities, and if they don't find the opportunities, they make the opportunities. But it is very hard when you're working for somebody else and you have a mortgage to pay and you have car payments to pay and you have maybe tuition fees and school fees and all that stuff. It's very hard to take the jump for him working for someone else to be self-employed. But here's the thing. If you want the rewards and you want the car and you want a few holidays a year and you want all that stuff, you have to take the risk. You have to take the jump. There will be days when you're driving around looking in the window of some company and everybody's at the desk doing their thing and you'll be thinking, God, wouldn't life be much easier if I just worked in that company on a computer, making a few phone calls and someone else paying my wage? God, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be a great life? But then you drive on and you realize, no, it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be a better life because you wouldn't be able to go on those holidays. You'd have to ask someone permission to take 2 weeks off. You have to ring someone if you're sick to get permission to take the day off. You want to go for a break, it has to be at a certain time. You can't do what you want to do. You just can't. That's just the way it is. So, yes, I do drive by companies. And yes, sometimes I see someone who I know going, God, they're doing very well. You know, if I had stayed in that job, I'd have a great pension now and I'd have a great this and great that. God, yeah. But then I think to myself, well, hold on. I wouldn't have traveled the world, seen the place I've traveled, brought my family on fantastic holidays all over the world. I wouldn't have met the people I met. You'd have fantastic entrepreneurs and fantastic individuals. I wouldn't have gone to a lot of networking events that I've gone to. I wouldn't have done all the types of business that I've done. I wouldn't have taken the chances. And you know, I wouldn't change that for the world. I wouldn't change that. Yes, there's bad times, but there's bad times when you work for somebody else. And yes, there's times when you have very little money, but there's other times when you're flying. And that's all part of being an entrepreneur. And it's funny, most entrepreneurs will only tell you after they've sold a company how tough it was and how tough business was when they were running the business. I know someone recently who sold a company for a nice few bob, but they only said afterwards how at certain times things were very tough and how they had to be very tight at home and how him and the wife worked very hard to keep things going, but at certain times it was at a knife edge and they didn't know how things were going to turn out. But sadly, a lot of entrepreneurs only tell those stories after they've sold a company. And the reason for that is very simple. They don't want their customers and suppliers and the staff knowing how tough things are, maybe in a particular day, or a particular week, or a particular month, or a particular year. They don't want their staff, anybody else, to know that. So those stories only come out later, afterwards. I always remember reading Richard Branson's book, like I think it's called Like a Virgin, his first book. And it was very interesting. In his first book, he tells a story where he had to sell Virgin Music. And he was getting 500 million for it. 500 million. But a lot of that money was going to the banks to pay off his mortgage for his island and his house. He was on the verge of losing everything. And he said, even walking down the Mall, which is the long walk towards Buckingham Palace, even walking down the Mall, going to the presentation for the £500 million check, he felt sick to his stomach that he was selling his business for 500 million. And a lot of people listening this morning will go, God, I'd be jumping and having a party. But he was selling something he loved, something he had built up, and he was being forced to sell it. And people probably listening going, forced to sell it for 500 million? Come on, Mark, that's brilliant money. But it wasn't. He was being forced to sell it in order to make sure he didn't lose other stuff that he was precious about and he loved. And was it a good thing moving? Well, it made him a better entrepreneur and made him better in what he does today. It made him a billionaire. But most of that 500 million was going to pay off banks. And he was been basically told if he didn't sell, they would bankrupt him. And it's interesting that he's walking down the Mall and he's feeling terrible that he's going to sell his company for 500 million. Everything is in perspective. Everything is relative. Other people be glad to sell the company for £5,000, £500,000, £5 million. But there's also all debts to go with that, other stuff that you have to pay off sometimes. So it's not always as it seems. It's not always as it seems. And it's only after these people sell the companies and they've moved on a bit, do they tell the story and you go, I never knew that. I never knew that. And that's just the way things are. So if you are a person this morning, if you are one of those people who are going into work now, telling all your work colleagues that you hate your job, you hate what you're doing, and you're actually going to do something different, you're going to go and find a better job, you have something in mind, you're going somewhere else, you're going to go and do bigger, greater things, then my only challenge to you this morning is go and do it. Stop talking about it. Go and do it. If you're not happy, then you may die young, right? Go and do it. You have nothing to lose. If it doesn't work out, you can still go back and find the same job somewhere else again. But do yourself a favor, take the risk and just go and do it, because the rewards from hard work and from luck, and there's a lot of luck in running your own business, a lot of luck being in the right place at the right time, seeing the right opportunities. There definitely is. And then also, when you get that luck, what do you do with it? How do you run with it? How do you make it work for yourself? So there is a lot to it, but why not go and do it? Stop moaning. Stop bitching. Just go and do it. If you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to go and do it for yourself, stop telling people you're going to. Don't be there next year. And actually, the thing to do is at this moment in time, write down in your diary now, 12 months ahead, do I still hate my job? Take out your diary, take out your phone, pick today's date, 25th of February 2027, in a year's time, and write down in the diary, do I still hate myself? That's what I would do. And if you still hate your job in a year's time, well, then you know nothing has changed in your life. Nothing has changed in your life. Okay, I'm going to call it a day on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Thanks so much for joining me this morning. Don't forget, my name is Mark Beggs. If you want me to help you in any way, if you want me to meet up with you, it's going to cost you the price of a cup of coffee. You're buying the coffee. And if you want me to, in case your business is in trouble, or you're wondering what the next step is and where to go and what to do, and you want someone to chat to, completely confidential, you buy the coffee and we'll have a chat for about 45 minutes. Or else, if you're one of my friends in the States or in Finland or Germany, then we can have a virtual coffee. And all my friends in the States and in New York, I hope everything is okay over there at the moment. You're going through a massive snowstorm, so I hope everyone is keeping well. All right, good morning, folks. I'll talk to you again tomorrow morning, Thursday. And as I said, we're here every weekday. If you missed any of the shows, they're all on YouTube, on @Mind's Eye Education. And if you need to reach out to me, it's markbeggs@gmail.com. Have a great morning. Take care of yourself.